The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor, its crash slicing through the laughter and clinking glasses of our engagement party. I stood frozen, my heart pounding as every eye in the room turned to me. Elliot Harper, the quiet artist who never wanted this spotlight. My fiancé, Nathan Caldwell, stood across the rooftop, his perfect smile faltering for just a second before he laughed it off, waving a dismissive hand. "Elliot's just clumsy tonight," Nathan said, his voice smooth as the Manhattan skyline gleaming behind him. The guests chuckled, their gazes softening with pity, but I felt the weight of his words like a blade. Clumsy. It wasn't the first time he dressed up his cruelty as a joke. But tonight, with 300 of New York's elite watching, it stung deeper. We were supposed to be celebrating our love, our future, on this glittering rooftop in the heart of the city. Instead, I was unraveling. I'd spent months planning this night at the Skylark, a chic venue perched above Midtown. Every detail, the white roses woven into the trellis, the string quartet playing softly. The menu tailored to Nathan's exact tastes was my doing. I wanted it to be perfect for him, the man I'd loved for 3 years, the man who'd swept me off my feet with his charisma and promises. Nathan, 29, was the kind of person who owned every room he entered, tall, sharp-jawed, with eyes that could charm a snake. I was 27, softer, an illustrator who preferred sketchbooks to boardrooms, and I'd always felt lucky to be his. But lately, his charm had a jagged edge, and I was bleeding from it. As the quartet struck up a new song, I slipped toward the edge of the rooftop, my navy suit feeling too tight, my palms sweaty. The city sprawled below, a sea of lights that usually calmed me. Tonight, it felt like a trap. I replayed Nathan's comment, the way his friends' world of hedge fund bros and socialites had laughed. They didn't know the Nathan I knew, the one who'd snap at me for forgetting a dinner reservation, who'd roll his eyes when I talked about my art, who'd made me feel smaller with every passing month. "Elliot, you okay?" A voice broke through my haze. It was Jamie, my best friend since college, his round face creased with concern. At 28, Jamie was a high school teacher with a knack for seeing through bullshit. His tie was slightly crooked, his glasses slipping down his nose, but his warmth was a lifeline. "Yeah," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just drop the glass." Jamie raised an eyebrow. "You don't drop things unless you're rattled. What's going on?" I hesitated. "How do you explain that the man you're supposed to marry makes you feel like a shadow? That every time you try to stand taller, he pushes you down?" I glanced at Nathan, now holding court with a group of investors, his laughter loud and effortless. He hadn't even looked my way since the glass broke. "It's nothing," I said, but Jamie's eyes narrowed. He knew me too well. "Elliot, you don't have to do this," he said softly. "Not if it's killing you." His words hit like a punch. I'd been avoiding the truth for months, maybe years. Nathan and I had met at a gallery opening, a nervous artist showcasing my work. Him, the confident stranger who'd bought my painting and asked me out in the same breath. He'd been my everything, my protector, my muse, my alpha. But somewhere along the way, his love had turned into control, and I'd let it happen. The party swirled around us, glasses clinking, dresses shimmering, the skyline glowing like a promise. I wanted to believe in that promise, in the life Nathan and I had planned, a brownstone in Brooklyn, a dog, maybe kids someday. But as I watched him charm the crowd, I felt a crack in my chest. A question I couldn't ignore: was this love worth losing myself for? A server approached with a tray of canapes, and I took one, more to have something to do with my hands than because I was hungry. Jamie stayed close, his presence steadying me. "You deserve better," he said, his voice low but fierce. "You always have." I opened my mouth to protest. But then I saw her, Lila, Nathan's assistant, weaving through the crowd. She was 25, sharp and ambitious, with a smile that could cut glass. She'd been working for Nathan for 6 months, and I'd noticed the way she lingered near him, the way he leaned into her jokes. Tonight, she was in a sleek red dress, her hand brushing Nathan's arm as she whispered something in his ear. He laughed, louder than he ever did with me. My stomach twisted. I wasn't jealous, not exactly. It was more like a confirmation of something I'd been too afraid to name. Nathan didn't just belittle me. He was pulling away, building a world where I didn't fit. And I'd been too scared to call it what it was, betrayal. Elliot, Jamie said, following my gaze. You see it, don't you? I nodded, my throat tight. I see it. The quartet shifted to a slower song, and Nathan's voice carried over the crowd, announcing a toast. To love, he said, raising his glass, his eyes skimming past me. The guests cheered, but I felt like I was drowning. This was our engagement party, but I was invisible. Worse, I was complicit, letting Nathan's world swallow mine. I set the canopy down, untouched. I need air, I told Jamie, and he nodded, squeezing my shoulder. Find yourself out there, he said. Not him. I slipped through the crowd, past the roses and the lights, toward a quiet corner of the rooftop. The city hummed below, alive and indifferent. I leaned against the railing, my hands trembling. For the first time in years, I let myself imagine a life without Nathan, a life where I wasn't apologizing for existing. It terrified me, but it also felt like freedom. As the party roared on, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be Nathan's shadow anymore. Tonight, I'd find my voice. And if it meant breaking everything apart, so be it. The Manhattan skyline glittered like a dream I'd stopped believing in. I stood at the rooftop's edge, gripping the cold metal railing, trying to steady my breath. The party's noise, laughter, music. Nathan's booming voice felt like it belonged to another world, one I wasn't sure I could return to. I thought back to the early days with Nathan, when his confidence had felt like a gift. He'd take me to rooftop bars like this one, his arm around me, whispering plans for our future. You're my anchor, Elliot, he'd say, his voice warm with conviction. But anchors don't just ground you, they can drag you under. And I was sinking. A soft tap on my shoulder pulled me back. It was Lila, her red dress catching the light like a warning. Up close, her sharp features softened, her eyes searching mine. Nathan's looking for you, she said, her tone neutral but her gaze too knowing. He's about to give the big speech. I forced a nod. Thanks. She lingered, her lips parting like she wanted to say more. You don't look okay, she said finally, her voice low. If you need to talk. I'm fine. I cut her off, sharper than I meant. Her concern felt like pity, and I couldn't stomach more of that tonight. She nodded, stepping back, but her eyes held mine for a beat too long before she turned away. I watched her weave back through the crowd, her silhouette blending into the sea of suits and sequins. Something about her offer not at minute because I trusted it, but because it made me question how obvious my pain had become. If Nathan's assistant could see it, who else could? And why hadn't Nathan? The quartet paused, and Nathan's voice cut through the air again, calling for attention. I steeled myself and walked back toward the center of the rooftop, where he stood on a small platform, glass in hand, commanding the room like a king. His tuxedo gleamed, his smile effortless. I felt like a ghost next to him. Tonight, Nathan began, his voice rich and theatrical. We celebrate not just love, but partnership, a bond that makes us stronger. His eyes flicked to me, but they didn't linger. Elliot and I, we're building something extraordinary. And I want to thank him well, for putting up with me. The crowd laughed, charmed as always. I forced a smile, but my chest burned. Putting up with him. It was another jab, disguised as affection, and I could feel Jamie's eyes on me from across the room, urging me to do something. Anything. Nathan continued, his speech a polished performance about love and ambition. But I barely heard it. My mind was racing, replaying every moment I'd let him diminish me. The time he'd laughed off my gallery show as cute. The nights he'd cancel our plans to network with people like Lila. The way he'd started calling my art a hobby in front of his friends. Each memory was a brick in a wall I'd built around my own worth. And I was done hiding behind it. As Nathan raised his glass for the final toast, I felt a surge of something reckless and raw. I stepped forward, my heart hammering, and cleared my throat. The crowd quieted, surprised. Nathan's smile froze, his eyes narrowing slightly. Elliot, he said, his tone light but edged with warning. I have something to say, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. The words felt like they'd been waiting years to escape. Nathan, you're right. This is about partnership. But it's also about truth. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Nathan's grip on his glass tightened. But I didn't stop. For 3 years. I've loved you. I've planned this night. This life. For us. But love isn't just about standing in someone's shadow. It's about being seen. The rooftop was silent now. The city's hum, the only sound. Nathan's face was a mask. But I could see the cracks: anger, embarrassment, maybe even fear. I didn't care. For the first time, I wasn't speaking for him or his world. I was speaking for me. I've been quiet too long, I said, my voice rising. I've let you make me feel small. Like my dreams, my work, my heart don't matter. But they do. And I'm done pretending they don't. A gasp came from somewhere in the crowd. Jamie was grinning, his eyes shining with pride. Lila stood frozen, her expression unreadable. Nathan stepped closer, his voice low and sharp. Elliot, this isn't the place. No, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. This is exactly the place. Our engagement party. Our truth. The string quartet faltered, and the guests shifted uncomfortably. But I felt alive, like I'd finally clawed my way to the surface. Nathan's jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought he might try to laugh it off again, turn me into the punchline. But he didn't. He just stared, his charm crumbling under the weight of my words. I turned to the crowd, my hands shaking but my resolve ironclad. Thank you all for coming, I said. But this party's over. At least for me. I walked off the platform, my steps steady despite the chaos I'd left behind. Jamie met me halfway, his arm around my shoulders. You did it, he whispered. You fucking did it. I didn't look back at Nathan. I didn't need to. The city stretched out before me, vast and full of possibility. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The elevator doors closed, shutting out the stunned silence of the rooftop. I leaned against the wall, my knees weak, Jamie's hand still on my shoulder. The mirrored interior reflected a version of me I barely recognized, eyes bright with defiance. Suit rumpled, but standing taller than I had in years. Holy shit. Elliot, Jamie said, his voice a mix of awe and adrenaline. You just burned it all down up there. I let out a shaky laugh. Yeah, I guess I did. The elevator dinged, and we stepped into the lobby of the Skylark, the marble floors gleaming under soft lights. Outside, Manhattan pulse taxis honking, pedestrians rushing. the city oblivious to the earthquake in my heart. I just walked away from my engagement, my future, and the man I thought I'd spend my life with. The weight of it was crushing, but there was a strange lightness too, like I'd shed a skin that never fit. Where to now? Jamie asked, adjusting his glasses. Your place? Mine. A bar. I hesitated. Our apartment was Nathan's domain, filled with his sleek furniture and his rules. I couldn't go back there. Not tonight. Yours, I said, if that's okay. Always, he said, pulling out his phone to call a rideshare. As we waited, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Nathan's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over decline. I didn't answer, but the sight of his name twisted something in my gut. 3 years of love didn't vanish in a single speech, no matter how justified. The ride to Jamie's place in Brooklyn was quiet, the city blurring past in streaks of yellow and neon. I kept replaying the moment I'd spoken up, the way Nathan's face had hardened, the crowd's shocked faces. Had I gone too far? Or not far enough? Jamie's apartment was a cozy mess, books piled on every surface, a half-finished puzzle on the coffee table, the faint smell of burnt toast lingering. He tossed his keys onto the counter and grabbed 2 beers from the fridge. Talk, he said, handing me one. Or don't. But I'm here. I sank onto his couch, the beer cold against my palm. I don't even know where to start, I admitted. I couldn't take it anymore. The way he talked over me, laughed at me, like I was some accessory he could show off or toss aside. Jamie sat across from me, his expression soft but serious. You've been carrying that for a long time. What made tonight different? I took a sip, the bitter taste grounding me. It was the glass, I said, when it broke. And he called me clumsy. It was like every insult he's ever thrown at me came crashing down too. I saw it all so clearly, how he's been chipping away at me, making me feel like I'm not enough. You're more than enough, Jamie said fiercely. You're talented, kind, and way too good for his bullshit. I smiled faintly, but doubt gnawed at me. Then why did I stay so long? Why did I let him do that to me? Jamie leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Because love makes you stupid sometimes. And Nathan's good at making people believe he's the sun they orbit around. But you're not his satellite, Elliot. You're a whole damn galaxy. His words hit me hard, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. I'd spent so long trying to fit into Nathan's world, his parties, his ambitions, his rules, that I'd forgotten who I was outside of him. The artist who'd once stayed up all night sketching cityscapes. The guy who'd dream up stories in every stranger's face. The person who'd believed in love as something equal, not a power struggle. My phone buzzed again. A text this time. Elliot, we need to talk. Now. Nathan. I showed it to Jamie, who rolled his eyes. He doesn't get to call the shots anymore, he said. You set the terms now. I nodded, but my fingers trembled as I typed a reply. Not tonight. I need space. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. It felt like a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The rest of the night passed in a blur of beer and conversation. Jamie told stories about his students, his disastrous attempts at baking, anything to keep my mind off the wreckage I'd left behind. But as I lay on his couch later, staring at the ceiling, the weight of what I'd done settled in. I'd walked away. But where was I walking to? My art career was stagnant. My savings were tied up in Nathan's world. And my heart was a battlefield. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and Jamie's off-key humming. He was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes with more enthusiasm than skill. Morning, hero, he said, sliding a plate toward me. You ready to face the world? Not really, I admitted. But I sat at the counter anyway, the warmth of the coffee cup steadying me. What do I do now? Jamie. I mean, practically. I can't go back to the apartment. I don't even know if I have a job anymore. Nathan had gotten me a gig illustrating for one of his friend's startups. Another string he'd pulled to keep me close. You start over, Jamie said simply. You've got your art, your heart, and a hell of a lot of courage. That's more than most people have. I wanted to believe him, but the future felt like a blank canvas, and I wasn't sure I had the strength to paint it. As I ate, my phone lit up again, not Nathan this time, but Lila. Her message was short. I'm sorry about last night. Can we meet? I need to tell you something. I stared at the screen, my pulse quickening. What could Nathan's assistant possibly have to say? And why did I feel like it would change everything? Lila's message stared back at me from the phone screen, its words sharp and heavy, like a stone dropped into still water. I showed it to Jamie, who frowned, his spatula hovering over a sizzling pancake. What does she want? He asked, suspicion lacing his voice. I don't know, I said, my thumb tracing the edge of the phone. But I think I need to find out. Jamie flipped the pancake, his eyes never leaving mine. Be careful, Elliot. She's Nathan's right hand. This could be him trying to pull you back in. I nodded, but curiosity and something else, maybe defiance, pushed me forward. I texted Lila back, agreeing to meet at a coffee shop in Williamsburg, neutral ground far from Nathan's glittering Manhattan world. As I got ready, borrowing one of Jamie's slightly too big flannel shirts, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. Whatever Lila had to say, it was a piece of the puzzle I needed to move forward. The coffee shop, a cozy spot called Brew and Brush, was tucked between a vintage bookstore and a yoga studio. Its walls were lined with local art, the air thick with the scent of espresso and fresh pastries. I arrived early, claiming a corner table by the window, my sketchbook open in front of me as a shield. I hadn't drawn in weeks, but my fingers itched to create, to reclaim something Nathan had made me feel was trivial. Lila walked in 10 minutes later, her red dress swapped for jeans and a leather jacket, her hair pulled into a messy bun. She looked less like Nathan's polished assistant and more like someone I might have met at an art show. She spotted me, offered a small smile, and slid into the seat across from me. Thanks for meeting me, she said, her voice softer than I expected. I know last night was a lot. Yeah, I said, closing my sketchbook. That's one way to put it. She fidgeted with the edge of her coffee cup, her nails painted a deep burgundy. I saw what happened. What you said up there. It took guts. More than I've ever had. I studied her, trying to read the sincerity in her eyes. Why am I here? Lila. She took a deep breath, her gaze dropping to the table. Because I owe you the truth. About Nathan. About me. My stomach tightened. I leaned forward, my voice low. What truth? She hesitated, then met my eyes. Nathan's been lying to you. For months. He's not just pulling away, he's been seeing someone else. Me. The words hit like a slap, sharp and disorienting. I sat back, my hands clenching into fists. You. I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Lila nodded, her face pale. It started a few months ago. Late nights at the office. Drinks after meetings. He said you two were struggling. That you were drifting apart. I believed him. I was stupid. I wanted to be angry, to hate her, but all I felt was a hollow ache. Nathan's betrayal wasn't a surprise, not really. I'd seen the signs, the late nights, the way he'd pull away when I tried to touch him. The growing distance I'd blamed myself for. But hearing it confirmed, from her, made it real in a way I wasn't ready for. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Because you deserve better," she said, echoing Jamie's words from the night before. "And because I'm done being his secret. I thought I was special to him. But I'm just another piece of his game. Like you were." Her words stung, but they also clarified something I'd been too afraid to face. Nathan didn't just belittle Mayhay manipulated everyone around him, building a world where he was always in control. I'd been his fiancé, Lila his mistress, and neither of us had seen the full picture until now. "Did you know?" I asked, my voice steadier now. "When we met, when you started working for him, did you know about me?" She shook her head. "Not at first. He didn't tell me he was engaged until later. By then, I was in too deep. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Elliot. I just want you to know you're not alone in this." I stared out the window, watching a couple walk by, hand in hand, laughing. They looked like Nathan and I used to, before the cracks started showing. "What do you want from me?" I asked finally. "Nothing," she said. "I just wanted you to know the truth. And maybe to say I'm sorry for my part in it." I nodded, not sure if I believed her or if it even mattered. The truth was out, and it was another weight off my chest. But it didn't erase the pain. "Thanks for telling me," I said, standing. "I need to go." She didn't try to stop me, just watched as I grabbed my sketchbook and left. Outside, the Brooklyn air was crisp, the streets alive with color and noise. I walked aimlessly, Lila's words echoing in my head. Nathan had betrayed me, but I'd betrayed myself too, letting him dim my light for so long. I ended up at a small park, sitting on a bench with my sketchbook open. For the first time in months, I drew not for a client, not for Nathan's approval, but for me. The lines were rough, angry, a cityscape of jagged edges and soft shadows. It felt like a beginning, like I was sketching the outline of a new life. My phone buzzed Nathan again, this time a voicemail. I didn't listen to it. Instead, I texted Jamie, "Can I stay with you a bit longer? I'm not ready to face him." His reply was instant, "As long as you need. You're home here." I smiled, the knot in my chest loosening just a little. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, it was mine to choose. The next few days at Jamie's were a blur of small victories and quiet doubts. I slept on his couch, surrounded by his cluttered warmth, and tried to piece together what came next. My sketchbook became my anchor, filling with drawings of the city gritty alleys, glowing bodegas, faces in subway crowds. Each stroke felt like reclaiming a part of myself Nathan had buried. But Nathan wasn't done with me. His texts came daily, a mix of apologies and demands. "I'm sorry, Elliot. Let's talk. You can't just walk away like this. You're making a mistake." I didn't respond, but each message was a reminder of the life I'd left behind and the fight I still faced. On the fourth day, Jamie convinced me to get out. "You need air, man," he said, tossing me a scarf. "Let's hit the High Line. You can sketch. I can people watch. And we'll both pretend the world isn't falling apart." The High Line was alive with autumn leaves crunching underfoot, tourists snapping photos, couples leaning into each other against the chilly breeze. I found a bench near 23rd Street, my pencil moving over the page as I captured the skyline's jagged beauty. Jamie sprawled beside me, sipping coffee and narrating the lives of strangers passing by. "That guy in the beanie," he said, pointing. "Definitely a poet. Probably writing about heartbreak in a moleskine right now." I laughed, the sound surprising me. It felt good, like a crack in the wall I'd built around myself. But the lightness faded when my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail from Nathan. This time, I played it, keeping the volume low so Jamie wouldn't hear. Elliot, it's me. Nathan's voice was smooth, practiced, but there was an edge to it. I know you're upset, but you humiliated me too. We need to fix this. Meet me at the apartment tomorrow, 7 p.m. I'm not giving up on us. I deleted the message, my hands shaking. Jamie noticed, his eyes narrowing. Him again. Yeah, I said, staring at my sketch. He wants to meet. At the apartment. Jamie sat up, his coffee forgotten. You don't owe him that. You know that, right? I know, I said, but part of me wasn't sure. 3 years of love, even tainted love, didn't vanish overnight. And there was the practical side of me: clothes, my art supplies. My life were still in that apartment. I couldn't avoid Nathan forever. That night, I lay awake on Jamie's couch, staring at the ceiling. I thought about Lila's confession, Nathan's betrayal, the way I'd let myself shrink to fit his world. But I also thought about the man I used to beta, one who'd spend hours sketching in Central Park, who'd dream of his art hanging in galleries, who'd believed love could be kind. I wanted to be him again. The next evening, I stood outside Erno, Nathan's apartment in Chelsea. The building's sleek facade loomed, all glass and steel, a monument to his success. My key still worked, but it felt wrong in my hand, like I was trespassing. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. Nathan was waiting in the living room, his tie loosened, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked tired, his sharp features softened by shadows. Elliot, he said, standing. You came. I'm here for my things, I said, my voice steady. Not for you. His face fell, but only for a moment. He stepped closer, his charm flickering back to life. Don't say that. We can work this out. I messed up. I know. But I love you. The words hit hard, stirring memories of better days, lazy Sundays in bed. His laughter when I'd smudge paint on his face. The way he'd once looked at me like I was his whole world. But those memories were ghosts now, overshadowed by the truth. You don't love me, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. You love controlling me. You love the idea of Mesamion quiet, someone who fits into your perfect life. But I'm not that person anymore. Nathan's jaw tightened. You're being dramatic. You think you can just walk away. After everything I've done for you. Everything you've done. I laughed, bitter and sharp. You mean keeping me under your thumb, making me feel like my art, my dreams, my existence is some kind of inconvenience. He stepped closer, his voice low. I gave you this life, Elliot. The apartment, the connections, the job. You'd be nothing without me. The words stung, but they didn't break me. Not this time. I was something before you, I said, my voice rising. And I'll be something after you. I don't need your world, Nathan. I need mine. He stared at me, his mask slipping, revealing the anger and insecurity beneath. For the first time, I saw him not as the alpha I'd idolized, but as a man afraid of losing control. And I wasn't afraid of him anymore. I moved past him, grabbing a duffel bag from the closet and stuffing it with clothes, sketchbooks, anything I could carry. Nathan watched, silent, his whiskey glass trembling in his hand. As I zipped the bag, he spoke, his voice quieter now. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, slinging the bag over my shoulder. But I'd regret staying more. I walked out, the door clicking shut behind me. The city greeted me with its chaos and noise. And for the first time, it felt like home. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk between freedom and fear. Staying with Jamie gave me space to breathe. But the weight of starting over pressed hard. My savings were thin. My job with Nathan's friend's startup was likely gone. And every corner of New York seemed to hold a memory of him. Still, I kept sketching, filling pages with the city's pulse, its grit, its hope, its relentless energy. It was like I was drawing myself back to life. Jamie was my rock, dragging me to diners and dive bars, forcing me to laugh when all I wanted to do was hide. One night, over greasy burgers at a spot in the East Village, he slid a flyer across the table. "Art show," he said, grinning. "Local gallery. Open call for submissions. You should enter." I stared at the flyer, my fingers tracing the bold letters. "I haven't shown my work in years," I said. Not since Nathan convinced you it wasn't worth it," Jamie finished, his voice gentle but firm. "But he's gone. Elliot, this is your shot." I took the flyer, my heart pounding. The idea of putting my art out there again was terrifying, but it also sparked something I hadn't felt in a long time: purpose. I spent the next few days in Jamie's cramped living room, surrounded by pencils and charcoal, pouring everything into a series of cityscapes, raw, emotional pieces that captured New York's beauty and pain. They were me, in every line and shadow. The gallery, a small space in Dumbo called the Canvas Collective, was a far cry from the sleek Manhattan venues Nathan favored. Its brick walls were lined with eclectic art, its floors scuffed from years of dreamers passing through. When I submitted my pieces, the curatorial woman in her 40s with a wild mane of curls and a warm smile looked at them for a long time before saying, "These have soul. You're in." The night of the show, I stood in the gallery, my heart in my throat. My 3 pieces hung on the far wall, their stark lines drawing eyes from across the room. Jamie was there, beaming like a proud parent, and a few of our old college friends showed up, their support a quiet anchor. But I felt exposed, like my heart was pinned to the wall alongside my art. Then I saw her, Lila, slipping through the crowd in a simple black sweater, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. I stiffened, unsure why she was here or what she wanted. She approached slowly, her expression unreadable. "Your work is incredible," she said, nodding toward my pieces. "I had no idea you were this good." "Thanks," I said, guarded. "What are you doing here?" She shifted, her hands in her pockets. "I saw the flyer online. I wanted to see what you'd create without him holding you back." Her words caught me off guard, a mix of sincerity and something sharper, like regret. "Why do you care?" I asked. She looked away, her jaw tight. "Because I know what it's like to lose yourself to someone like Nathan. I quit my job last week. I'm done being his pawn." I studied her, searching for a lie, but all I saw was a woman trying to rebuild, just like me. "Good for you," I said finally. "It's not easy." "No," she agreed, a small smile breaking through. "But it's worth it." We talked for a while, not as enemies, but as survivors of the same storm. She told me about her plans to start over, maybe go back to school for design. I told her about the gallery, about how it felt to stand in a room where my art was enough. It wasn't friendship, not yet, but it was a start. As the night went on, people drifted to my pieces, their murmurs of praise filling me with a quiet pride. One couple, older and sharply dressed, lingered longest, asking about my process, my inspiration. "We're collectors," the woman said, handing me a card. "We'd love to see more of your work." I took the card, my hands trembling. It wasn't just about the potential sale, it was about being seen. Not as Nathan's fiancé or anyone's shadow, but as Elliot Harper, artist. When the show ended, Jamie slung an arm around me, grinning. Told you. You're a star. I laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in weeks. I'm just getting started. That night, I walked back to Jamie's under a sky full of stars. The cities hum a song of possibility. Nathan's shadow was fading, and in its place, I was finding my own light. The gallery show was a spark, and I fanned it into a flame. Over the next month, I threw myself into my art, sketching and painting with a ferocity I hadn't felt since college. Jamie's apartment became a makeshift studio, canvases leaning against every wall, paint smudging the floor. He didn't mind, kept saying it made the place bohemian chic. I started getting commissions. Small at first, a portrait for a local cafe, a mural for a community center. The collectors from the gallery reached out, buying 2 of my pieces and connecting me with others in their circle. It wasn't fame, but it was a start, a foundation I was building on my own terms. Nathan's messages slowed, then stopped. I heard through mutual friends that he'd spun the breakup to his advantage, playing the victim to his socialite crowd. It stung, but I let it go. His story wasn't mine anymore. One crisp November morning, I got an email from the Canvas Collective. They wanted to feature me in a group show, this time with a bigger audience: critics, curators, maybe even press. I read the email 3 times, my heart racing. This was real. This was mine. I told Jamie over breakfast, and he hooped so loud the neighbors probably heard. You're killing it, Elliot, he said, pouring us both more coffee. We need to celebrate. Dinner. My treat. That night, we ended up at a tiny Italian place in Williamsburg, all candlelight and checkered tablecloths. As we dug into plates of gnocchi, Jamie raised his glass. To you, he said, for fighting back. I clinked my glass against his, my throat tight. To us, I corrected. I couldn't have done this without you. He waved it off, but his eyes were bright. Just don't forget me when you're some big shot artist. Okay. Never. I promised. And I meant it. The group show was a week later, and I poured everything into preparing. I chose 5 pieces, each one a story of resilience, a rain-slicked street reflecting neon, a lone figure under a street lamp, a skyline breaking through fog. They were my heart, raw and unfiltered, and I was ready to share them. The night of the show, the gallery buzzed with energy. I wore a simple blazer, my hair still a mess from nervous hands, but I felt steady, grounded. People milled around, their voices a low hum as they studied the art. My pieces drew a crowd, and I overheard snippets of praise words like evocative and bold that made my chest swell. Then I saw him, Nathan, standing by the door, his tuxedo crisp as ever. My stomach dropped. He hadn't been invited, but of course he'd show up. Nathan never missed a chance to control the narrative. He approached, his smile tight. Elliot, he said, his voice smooth but laced with something darker. You've been busy. What are you doing here? I asked, keeping my distance. I heard about the show, he said, glancing at my pieces. Thought I'd see what all the fuss is about. I crossed my arms, my jaw tight. You've seen it. Now leave. He stepped closer, his voice low. You think this is you? This art thing. You're playing at something you'll never be. Elliot, you need me. His words were a knife, sharp and familiar, but they didn't cut like they used to. I stepped forward, meeting his gaze. I needed someone who believed in me. That was never you. The room seemed to fade. The crowds hummed distant. Nathan's face twitched, his charm cracking. You'll crash and burn without me, he said, but his voice was weaker now. Desperate. Then I'll burn, I said, but it'll be my fire, not yours. I turned away, my heart pounding, but my steps sure. Jamie was there, watching from across the room, his nod a silent cheer. Nathan didn't follow me. He left, his shadow smaller than I'd ever seen it. The rest of the night was a blur of handshakes and praise. A critic from a local paper asked for an interview. A gallery owner from Soho wanted to discuss a solo show. I said yes to both, my voice steady, my heart full. As I walked home with Jamie, the city felt alive. Its lights a map of possibility. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. Months passed, and New York became my canvas. The group show led to more opportunities, commissions, interviews, even a small feature in an art magazine. I moved out of Jamie's place into a tiny studio in Greenpoint, its walls already covered with sketches and half-finished paintings. It wasn't much, but it was mine, paid for with my own work, my own heart. I saw Lila again, at a coffee shop one rainy afternoon. She was different now, freer, her smile less guarded. She told me she'd enrolled in a design program, that she was finding her own path. We talked for hours, not as rivals, but as people who'd survived the same storm. When we parted, she hugged me, and it felt like closure. Nathan faded into the background, a ghost I no longer feared. I heard he'd moved on, dating someone new, spinning the same charm. I wished him well, but from a distance. My life was too full for his shadow. One evening, as spring bloomed across the city, I stood in my studio, finishing a new Paisea vibrant mural of two figures embracing under a starlit skyline. It was love, not as I'd known it with Nathan, but as I hoped it could be, equal, kind, real. I stepped back, paint on my hands, and smiled. This was who I was, Elliot Harper. Artist, survivor, dreamer. The next day, I got a call from the Soho gallery owner. She wanted to schedule my solo show for the fall. Your work speaks, she said. It's honest. People feel that. I thanked her, my voice steady but my heart soaring. After we hung up, I walked to the window, looking out at the city. It was messy, loud, unforgiving, but it was also mine. I'd fought for this for me and I'd won. That night, I met Jamie for drinks at our old dive bar. He raised his beer, his grin wide. To fighting back, he said. To starting over, I added, clinking my glass against his. As we laughed and talked, the city hummed around us, alive with possibility. I didn't know what the future held, love, art, or otherwise, but I knew I'd face it on my terms. And that was enough.